Hey there, it's Alex Aronson with Court Accountability Action here on the Legal AF Network. We are thrilled to be with you. I got my colleague, Court Accountability Senior Advisor Mike Sacks, our constitutional politics ninja, on hand. We are pretty fired up today after reading some shocking and really outrageous news in the New York Times about a new $19 million super PAC that dropped right after the pre-election filing deadline, so that they can avoid transparency on who is funding this super PAC. It is called the RBG PAC. It is a pro-Trump super PAC that is running on RBG's name, defiling this icon of the justice system. A person who, we'll get into this in the video, had no love at all for Donald Trump, and run by an organization, connected to an organization that has a long track record of opposing women's issues, certainly on reproductive freedoms, but a whole host of other issues. Mike, what's your initial take? This news just dropped this afternoon. How are you thinking? How are you responding to this?
No, I'm not shocked easily, Alex, but this took my breath away in its cynicism. It's just abject cynicism. Now, this ad juxtaposes Trump and RBG, pretty much saying they agree on this one big thing. Now, what's that one big thing? That Trump says he opposes a congressional national abortion ban. Right? We can get into what he doesn't say, but that alone is a very thin reed to connect Trump and Ginsburg. And that's the point of this ad. It's pretty much announcing to its audience, to those who see it, we think you're stupid and ignorant. Vote for Trump. I mean, that's the ad. It's assuming that people will see these two people next to each other and think, yeah, okay, she says vote. She says she's with Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump. It makes no sense at all.
And on top of the the lies, right? That's the straightforward lies about kind of where Trump stands in this, how he is responsible for Dobbs putting those justices on the bench, all these lower court judges that have been assaulting women's rights in these whole host of cases. It's just this utter insult, right? Of course, um, RBG at the end of her life, sometimes like questionably, right, as a judge on the highest court in the land, expressing her distaste for Donald Trump, making clear that her dying wish, as you mentioned before we hopped on, was to avoid having Trump replace her.
I mean, this is the line. This is the line, Alex. She told her granddaughter in her deathbed, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." And now remember, Ginsburg died just a month and a half before the election, and Amy Coney Barrett was pushed through to be confirmed just before the 2020 election. And who was the fifth vote to overturn Roe versus Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood? Who, Alex?
I believe that was Amy Coney Barrett, fresh off the Seventh Circuit, newly confirmed to the Supreme Court.
Who was the person that Trump selected to replace Ginsburg against her dying wish?
Yeah,
So
and
it's
occupying
astounding.
her chambers at the Supreme Court. I mean, the insult on top of injury here is really beyond the pale.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we can just keep going on this. Ginsburg in 2016 told a reporter that she thought Trump was a faker, which created a whole big hullabaloo because if there was an election issue going to the Supreme Court, either in 2016 or had she not died in 2020, there was questions of whether she should recuse because she's prejudged or at least shown some animus towards the candidate. Right. So that was a big thing. And then on top of that, Alex, let's get into what a Donald Trump administration would look like for reproductive freedoms, for things that Ginsburg stood for. She was a known critic of Roe because of its early on at least, because of its rationale, not because of its final holding. She was a complete and absolute supporter of the constitutional right to have an abortion in this country, totally, entirely, without any qualification. But let's get into what would happen under a Trump administration. First, although Trump has said he won't support a national abortion ban through an act of Congress because he's trying to, again, get the very voters that this ad is cynically designed to attract, the suburban moms, as the news article from the New York Times had mentioned. But he is fine with state bans. That's happened since the fall of Roe under Dobbs. Fine with them. Totally okay with them. He thinks it's a beautiful thing that state by state can choose whether they want to outright ban abortion and have women die of sepsis, or whether they have a 24-week threshold like you see in states like New York. Right? That's what he says. But who would populate his administration? Alex, we are very well versed in Project 2024. And what happens under Project 2024?
25.
Yeah, that's what happens under. I am well versed under Project 2025, despite my saying that line. I'm just in this year and thinking about this election. But Alex, what happens under Project 2025 for abortion rights in America?
It would be a nightmare. I mean, the Project 2025 is a Christian nationalist playbook concocted and funded by the same right-wing dark money interests that put these justices on the bench to end abortion access. They invoke the concept of fetal personhood numerous times in Project 2025, this idea, and then you see it, right, of course, in the RNC platform as they move from decades of calling for a constitutional amendment to overturn Roe versus Wade and to protect life, fetal life through a constitutional amendment, to sort of silently, making the claim that the 14th Amendment inherently protects fetal personhood, right? And so this is one of the dynamics here. As the Project 2025 and Trump agenda would take power, as Donald Trump wants to distance himself politically from the idea of a national abortion ban, they're going to outsource this dirty work to these judges, these justices they put on the bench.
And not just that, there are judges who are on the bench that are fully for this idea of fetal personhood. That the 14th Amendment right to life means that fetuses have that right, and it trumps the right of the woman to control her own body.
Including Amy Coney Barrett, who has, before she was a Supreme Court justice, made clear her belief in that position.
Yeah, but on top of that, they don't even need the judges on this case. Also, at least in the affirmative, right? The Project 2025 has, if you check the footnotes, if you read the statutes they're citing, they're in favor of resuscitating the Comstock Act, which is a Victorian era act that made the mailing of abortion instruments, interstate and from foreign mails, made the receiving and sending of those criminal, illegal issues. So what does this mean?
So they'll revive this zombie law to ban medication abortion nationwide. I think there's real concern that they would try to overextend the Comstock Act as written, and which hasn't been enforced for as long as we can remember, to ban other reproductive access beyond medication abortion. They're also talking in Project 2025 about the EMTALA issue, right? Emergency access for women who are risking losing their lives and needing abortions to save their own lives, really limiting the ability of the federal government to protect those women.
Yeah, so let's be clear here. If Trump gains the presidency, and his DOJ, his HHS, they ban the abortion pill, or they start enforcing the Comstock Act against those sending and receiving mifepristone, or even just instruments to be used for abortion in states that have legal abortion. They will criminalize that. Now, someone who's being sued criminally will say, but no, this law it's never been enforced this way. And what will Trump's judges say? They will say, oh, well, we're going to enforce it now. And it'll go up to the Supreme Court. And do we trust the Supreme Court not to also fully revive Comstock and make this country pretty much a place where Victorian values of that were never enforced in the first place are actually enforced in the 21st century? That's what's at stake here. So bringing this back to Ginsburg and this ad, it's preposterous. It's breathtaking in its cynicism, in its expectation that the people seeing it might actually think, oh, yeah, okay, that works for me. And they won't be aware of even a modicum of what we've been saying, Alex. Just the fact that Ginsburg was a lifetime supporter of abortion rights, and that Trump himself has said in debates and over again that he's fine with the states banning abortion. Makes no sense.
And I think it's also worth just taking a little bit of time to dig into this group, right? A brand new PAC that just got formed days ago, as I mentioned earlier, after the pre-general election filing deadline, such that they can keep their donor identities obscured. $19 million in late money surging into presumably swing states in this election. It's connected to another dark money group called the Independent Women's Law Center, which itself is connected to another dark money group, the Independent Women's Forum, which, advertises itself as, like that name suggests, an independent women's forum concerned about women's issues. It's one of the most far-right anti-women groups in the entire ecosystem. I kid you not. This group was grown out of another organization that was originally called Women for Clarence Thomas. Ginny Thomas is deeply involved in this organization. They lobby against VAWA. They have routinely, consistently been involved in judicial politics and politics generally, advancing the far right's anti-women agenda. And here they are, manipulating campaign laws, using dark money to seed these lies, to help Donald Trump. It is really more than the mind can really process at this point.
Yeah, this organization has been around again since the early 90s. Found its footing in the 90s in its opposition to then President Clinton and then First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton. They've been around, and they stood for everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood against. Like, explicitly lined up in opposition, in briefing, in advertising, in the judges and justices they supported to act in contradiction to and in balance to Ginsburg on the bench. That's what they've stood for. And now they're getting behind her, co-opting her, like, the Susan B. Anthony list co-opted Susan B. Anthony 80 years after Susan B. Anthony died. And we don't know maybe whether she supported or didn't support abortion, because that wasn't really a big issue when she was seeking suffrage for women in this country. And who knows how she'd be in today's milieu. And it took a generation for neo-Confederates to co-opt Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream every year just to say they also exist under his banner that he never would have supported for them. It's only taken, 3 years now for this organization that explicitly has always been against what Ginsburg was for to say, yes, but she's our gal because she stands with our guy, when it never was the case when she was alive.
Unreal. So, I think one thing this highlights, right, is the opportunity that these folks see for this type of disinformation, just how important an issue this is in this home stretch before Election Day on November 5th. And I think it's a subject of, that where people are vulnerable to mis and disinformation like this. And where folks, as they, knock on doors, as they talk to their friends and family, share this video, like we'll throw a link into a piece we put out on this fetal personhood threat, how this legal movement, this right-wing legal movement, is trying to constitutionalize 14th Amendment rights to life for fetuses, in contravention of any kind of originalist or textualist constitutional interpretive principle. Get this information out there, because people can and should be prioritizing abortion access, women's reproductive freedoms in their voting choices, and we cannot let them be misinformed, lied to, and convinced that Trump would be a champion for those issues.
Yeah.
So in closing here, Mike, I just want to thank you for joining me here on Legal AF today. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. This channel is a rocket ship. We are so grateful to be here. Hat tip to Popak, who is in absentia this afternoon. And we'll see you next time with Court Accountability Action on Legal AF.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.